Well, once seen as a potential American star in this year's Olympics, Sha'Carri Richardson is now off the U.S. track and field team roster. The 21-year-old sprinter was suspended for a month after testing positive for marijuana, a banned substance for the Games. That knocked her out of the 100-meter race, but U.S. officials have now excluded her from the relay competition as well. Richardson has apologized and said that she used marijuana to cope with the death of her mother. So Adam Kilgore has been following this story and joins me now. He's a national sports reporter for the Washington Post. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. The article is really good that you and your co-author wrote there. Let us talk about sort of let's talk about this particular case with Richardson, why she was suspended and why the suspension was only for a month. What do we know about what happened with her?
Sure. So the basic facts are that in late June, Sha'Carri Richardson won the 100-meter championship at the U.S. Olympic trials, which moved her on to the Olympic Games, where she was expected to be a huge star. You know, she's incredibly fast, one of the fastest women in American history, second fastest woman in the world this year, and runs with this great style and confidence and bravado. You know, it just kind of has that athletic charisma that you just can't take your eyes off when she's performing. So it comes out about a week and a half after her victory that she tested positive for THC, which under the WADA code and as enforced by USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, is on a prohibited list of substances. It's not considered a performance-enhancing substance, but it is considered a substance of abuse. And it carries a 90-day suspension, which gets knocked down to 30 days once you enter into a rehab program. So she's suspended for a month, but her results are also disqualified from the competition where she was tested, which was the trials. And the USATF, the United States Track and Field, their selection process for the Olympics is very strict. It all ties to results at the trials. So because her trials results were disqualified, she then was no longer eligible to compete in the 100 meters. However, there's a sort of slim hope that she could have competed in the relays because the relay team is sort of chosen, not strictly based on finish. However, USATF decided that because her results were invalidated at the trials, as much as they believe that the rule about THC being a punishable substance should be reevaluated. They said that they believe it would not be fair to other athletes who did post times at the trials if they were not taken when Richardson's times were not considered valid. So that's where we are. That was kind of their reasoning for why she's not even going to be chosen for the relay team either.
Right. Perfect snapshot of the case for people to understand. So, of course, this has started a whole sort of conversation about marijuana as a performance-enhancing drug, whether or not it should be banned or not within the sporting world. The article that you guys wrote gives a really good history of how marijuana became, or THC became, was put on the list of banned drugs and why it stays there. Can you kind of give us a brief history of that?
Sure. So I think the very roots of it trace back to really U.S. drug policy, in the 90s. So in the late 90s, when the World Anti-Doping Association was formed, a lot of the funding came from the U.S. government. And at that time, the drug czar in the Clinton White House was a man named Barry McCaffrey, who he'd been involved in the war on drugs in the U.S. Sort of a policy that I think most people consider outdated these days. But along with the funding, there was a sort of implicit and in some ways explicit message that if you don't test not only for performance-enhancing drugs that affect sports, like steroids or masking agents or HGH, that kind of thing, the U.S. also sort of put pressure on WADA to test for and punish marijuana, cocaine, heroin, drugs of abuse, or recreational drugs. So that was kind of the genesis of it. Over the years, it stayed on the list for several reasons. I think there was a debate in anti-doping circles whether there could be a performance benefit from marijuana. The science, I guess, isn't like totally settled. Most people think, reasonably so, that most athletes, especially sprinters, are not going to get a benefit from marijuana being in their system. I think that's pretty obvious. There's also a lot of governmental pressure from across the globe, even as attitudes have obviously shifted quite a bit toward a more pervasive policy about marijuana in the United States. That's not the case across the globe everywhere. There's some places where you can smoke marijuana and get caught and you're thrown in prison. So there's pressure from those governments on WADA to keep it on some sort of ban. And there's also corporate pressure, for corporations who sponsor the Olympics, who have presences in those countries where marijuana is not seen in the same light that it's seen in the U.S. right now. They don't want the sort of connotation of marijuana use or drug use, recreational drug use, I should say, with the game. So all of those factors, all of those pressures is why it's on there. And even now, that said, like anti-doping circles have sort of shown their hand as far as how they view marijuana and how it's not considered a performance enhancer. Number one, it's not even listed as a performance enhancing drug in the WADA code anymore. It's listed under substance of abuse. And just this year, the penalty and punishment for testing positive for THC was reduced from down to that 90 days, which always gets knocked down to a month because of the program. So they've shown signs that they're sort of leaning toward more of a U.S. view. Just so happens that there's still this punishment, and for Richardson, it was just incredibly rotten and unfortunate timing.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting when it comes to the list of substances that are banned. There's kind of like, it seems like a catch-all category of like substances that could cause harm to an athlete. And, you write in the article that, hey, maybe if a boxer, smokes weed, could that cause harm because they are slower reflexes or whatever. So you can kind of almost manipulate it in a way. I thought it was really fascinating that WADA's restrictions follow, the way governments around the world and the governments that are on the board, the way they view what an illicit drug is and what it isn't. And that is changing rapidly in this country. So what does Richardson's snub, say about the larger conversation about athletes and drugs? Because we've seen, certain leagues, just like you point out that there is some loosening of the punishments associated with THC. We've seen some leagues also do the same thing, professional leagues, when it comes to their athletes using marijuana. Obviously, in some states, you can use marijuana, medically for anxiety or any number of other illnesses. So, what do you think this conversation says, and where do you think it's going?
Sure. Yeah. In this country, it's totally going towards, the sort of embrace of marijuana in sports. Natasha Cloud, a great WNBA player, tweeted after the story that she has a medical card and she uses marijuana for her mental health. The NFL has poured a lot of money into funding for research and looking into the potential medical use of marijuana as pain management, as almost like a replacement for addictive opioids for its players. Just yesterday, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, it basically said we're not going to test for marijuana anymore. It's a free for all in that sport. I think across the board in the U.S., leagues have relaxed their marijuana policies, and in some cases, like the NFL, as I mentioned, have sort of embraced it as a possible benefit for players. The rest of the world is in a different place, and it's varied. There's a lot of different attitudes toward it, which makes the debate at WADA very complicated and fraught. But I think I talked to an IOC member from Canada named Dick Pound, who was one of the founders of WADA. And he himself said, if he was on that board today, if he was in charge of WADA, he would take it off. Basically he says there's no proof that it's performance enhancing, and there's no reason for WADA to be in the business of regulating what athletes put in their bodies, and that if governments want to treat it as a criminal offense, that's their business. But there's no reason for WADA to make it its business, because it doesn't have an effect on the field or track or rink or whatever sporting venue is being used at the Olympics.
Listen, Adam, it's a really interesting, fascinating article that I think will help people understand why we are where we are right now. And, you can't help but to wonder if, in a few more Olympics, if somebody is in a similar situation as Richardson, if they would find themselves being banned the way that she has. And it's really sort of unfortunate timing for her that the ban is a month long and it's going to, impact this year's Olympics for her. But Adam Kilgore, thank you so much.
Thank you.